Welcome back to the Deep Dive. For those tuning into Occult Archives for the first time, well, this is where we kind of roll up our sleeves and get our hands dirty with history's most, let's just say, buzzworthy books.
Yeah, buzzworthy is a good word for it. Some would even say notorious, infamous, feared even.
Right. Not just your typical dusty old volumes. We're talking about texts that have sparked controversy, debate, even whispers of being too dangerous for the uninitiated.
And we try to get beyond just the stories surrounding these texts to unpack why they've captivated and sometimes terrified people for centuries.
Exactly. So for episode 152, are you keeping track?
Mhm.
We're cracking open the Hermetic Mirror, the 7 laws of the Kybalion. And, well, this one's a bit of a trip, let me tell you. It claims to reveal this ancient wisdom, a kind of secret knowledge passed down through a lineage of, get this, initiates.
It's definitely one of those books that gets lumped into the occult category, which already carries a certain mystique. But beyond the label, it offers a very specific system of thought, a way of understanding reality itself that some might find, well, a bit unsettling.
All right, so for our deep dive today, you've essentially given us a map to this, uh, let's call it a hidden dimension of thought. And our mission, if we choose to accept it, is to navigate the core principles of this Hermetic philosophy. We're going to try and distill the essence of what the Kybalion lays out, and then see if we can connect it to, I don't know, maybe understanding our own lives a little better.
Absolutely. And to be clear, we're working primarily with excerpts from the 1908 publication of the Kybalion, attributed to these mysterious figures known only as the Three Initiates.
Right. Always a good starting point, right? So the book kicks off with these 7, what it calls Hermetic Principles, and presents them as this, well, almost like a master key. It says they are the magic key before whose touch all the doors of the temple fly open.
A pretty bold claim, right?
No kidding. So
Here.
let's start turning this key, shall we? Principle number 1, the principle of mentalism. The book puts it like this, and I'm quoting here. The all is mind. The universe is mental. Now, I don't know about you, but that's a bit of a head scratcher for me.
Yeah, it definitely gets right to the heart of the Hermetic worldview. So, to unpack it a bit, we need to start with this concept of the all. It's not quite a personal god like in many religions. It's more like the ultimate fundamental reality, the source of everything. But instead of picturing some kind of cosmic being, think of it as pure, infinite consciousness.
Okay, so instead of a guy with a beard on a cloud, it's more like a mind?
Right. And calling it mind isn't to say it's exactly like our human minds, just way bigger. It's more about trying to use a word we can grasp to point towards this ultimate, incomprehensible source of everything. And the book is very clear that the all is ultimately unknowable, undefinable. We can only get glimpses of its nature.
Got it. So the all is this kind of unimaginably vast mind. But what does that make everything else? Like the trees, the stars, my coffee cup, my thoughts?
Well, that's where the second part of that axiom comes in. The universe is mental. What the Kybalion is saying is that the entire universe, everything we experience, is essentially a mental creation of this all. It exists within this infinite mind.
Hold on. So you're saying that everything around us is like a thought in the mind of this?
Of the all, yeah.
Wow. That's a pretty different way of looking at things. Okay, so if I'm understanding this right, the Kybalion is saying that reality at its most fundamental level is mental. It's all thought. But what does that even mean for, like, everyday life? How am I supposed to use this idea?
Well, that's a big question, but think about it this way. If everything is ultimately mental, then our thoughts aren't just these random things happening in our heads. They're actually creative forces, and understanding the power of your thoughts can be, well, pretty empowering.
So if I'm getting this right, understanding this principle of mentalism, really grasping it, could change how I see the world, even how I act in the world.
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
Because if the universe is fundamentally mental, then maybe we have more influence over our experiences than we realize. Our thoughts might not just be reflections of reality, they might actually be shaping it.
All right. Lots to chew on there. Let's move on to principle number 2, shall we?
Let's do it.
This one is the principle of correspondence, and the Kybalion sums it up with this phrase, as above, so below. As below, so above. I feel like I've heard that somewhere before.
Yeah, it's a pretty famous Hermetic saying, and it popped up in a lot of different spiritual and mystical traditions. The basic idea is that there's this constant connection, this mirroring between different levels of reality. So what's true on a higher level, like the spiritual realm, will also be reflected on the lower levels, like the physical world.
So, like, if there's order in the cosmos, there should also be order in our own lives.
Exactly. Or if we see patterns repeating in nature, maybe those same patterns are also at play in our thoughts, our emotions, our relationships. It's about recognizing this interconnectedness, this web of correspondences that links everything together.
So kind of a like look for the patterns approach to life.
Yeah, kind of. And the Kybalion suggests that by understanding one level of reality, you can gain insights into other levels. It's like having a key that can unlock multiple doors.
That makes sense. Okay, on to principle number 3, the principle of vibration. This one says that nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates. Now, this sounds a lot like what, modern science tells us about the universe.
Right, it does. And the Kybalion actually points that out. It says that modern science is starting to validate what the Hermeticists have been saying for centuries, that everything in the universe, from the tiniest atom to the biggest star, is in constant motion. It's all about vibration.
So everything is just vibrating at different speeds. Like what makes a rock different from a thought, according to this?
Well, it's all about the rate of vibration. The Kybalion says that spirit, the highest level of reality, vibrates so fast it appears to be at rest. And then you have matter, the physical world, which vibrates much slower. And everything else falls somewhere in between on this spectrum of vibration. Your thoughts, your emotions, even light and sound, it's all just different frequencies of vibration.
Okay, so this idea of everything vibrating, it's not just some abstract concept. It has real-world implications. Like what?
Well, the Kybalion suggests that we can actually learn to control our own mental vibrations. By changing our thoughts, our focus, we can raise or lower our vibration and potentially even influence our experience of reality.
So like if I'm feeling down, I can try to shift my vibration by focusing on positive thoughts.
Exactly. Or if you want to attract certain things into your life, you can try to align your vibration with the vibration of those things. It's all about understanding and harnessing the power of vibration.
Fascinating. All right, let's keep moving. Principle number 4, polarity. And this one comes with a mouthful of an axiom. Ready? Everything is dual. Everything has poles. Everything has its pair of opposites. Like, unlike are the same. Opposites are identical in nature, but different in degree. Extremes meet. All truths are but half-truths. All paradoxes may be reconciled.
Phew. Yeah, it's a lot to take in. But the basic idea is that everything has its opposite. And those opposites, while they seem totally different, are actually just two ends of the same spectrum.
Okay, give me an example.
Sure. Think of hot and cold. They seem like opposites, right? But they're really just different degrees of temperature. Or love and hate. They're not two separate things. They're just different points on the spectrum of emotion.
So this principle is saying that even things that seem completely opposite are actually connected.
Exactly. And the Kybalion suggests that we can use this understanding to our advantage. It introduces this concept of mental alchemy, which is the ability to transmute one mental state into another by changing its polarity.
So, like, if I'm feeling afraid, I can try to shift that fear into courage by focusing on the opposite end of the spectrum.
That's the idea.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing that you have the power to move along the spectrum of your emotions rather than being stuck at one end or the other.
That's a powerful concept. All right, on to principle number 5, rhythm. The axiom here is everything flows out and in, everything has its tides, all things rise and fall, the pendulum swing manifests in everything. The measure of the swing to the right is the measure of the swing to the left. Rhythm compensates. This one sounds a lot like the cyclical nature of, well, everything.
Right. It's about recognizing that there's a natural ebb and flow to everything in the universe. Think about the tides, the seasons, the cycles of day and night.
And you're saying this same principle applies to our own lives, our own inner states.
Absolutely. The Kybalion suggests that our emotions, our energy levels, even our creativity all follow this rhythmic pattern. There are times when we feel high, times when we feel low, times when we're productive, times when we're not.
So like those ups and downs we all experience are just part of this universal rhythm.
Exactly. And understanding this can be really helpful, especially when we're going through a tough time. It reminds us that things will eventually change. The pendulum will swing back the other way.
So it's not about trying to stop the pendulum from swinging.
No, the Kybalion actually suggests that we can't completely stop the swing, but we can learn to ride the waves, so to speak. We can learn to detach from the highs and lows and find a sense of balance in the midst of it all. And it even hints at a way to transcend the sway of the pendulum altogether by rising to a higher level of consciousness. But that's a whole other discussion.
Okay, I'll have to save that for another deep dive. All right, 2 more principles to go. Principle number 6, cause and effect. This one states that every cause has its effect, every effect has its cause, everything happens according to law. Chance is but a name for law not recognized. There are many planes of causation, but nothing escapes the law. So basically, this is saying that the universe is governed by order, by laws.
Right. And this principle is actually a cornerstone of many philosophical and scientific systems. The idea that nothing happens randomly, that everything has a cause and an effect. But the Kybalion takes it a step further.
How so?
It suggests that by understanding and working with these universal laws, we can actually become more than just effects. We can become causes.
So instead of just reacting to things that happen to us, we can start to create the effects we want in our lives.
Exactly. It's about moving from a place of powerlessness to a place of empowerment, from being a pawn in the game of life to becoming a player.
I like that. Okay, last but not least, principle number 7, gender. And this one's axiom is, gender is in everything. Everything has its masculine and feminine principles. Gender manifests on all planes. Now, obviously, this isn't just talking about men and women.
Right. It's important to remember that the Kybalion was written over 100 years ago, so the language it uses might sound a bit dated to modern ears, but when it talks about gender, it's not talking about biological sex. It's talking about these two fundamental forces that are present in everything.
And what are those forces?
Well, the masculine principle is associated with things like activity, expression, outward focus. And the feminine principle is associated with receptivity, nurturing, inward focus.
So everything contains a balance of these two principles.
Exactly. And it's the interplay of these two forces that creates everything in the universe.
So like the yin and yang.
Exactly. It's a very similar concept.
No. Okay, so we've now gone through all 7 Hermetic principles. I got to say, there's a lot to unpack here. But one thing that keeps popping up is this idea of mental transmutation. Can you explain what that is?
Sure. Mental transmutation is basically the art and science of changing your mental state. It's about using your will and your understanding of these principles to transform your thoughts, your emotions, your beliefs. It's about becoming the alchemist of your own mind.
So it's kind of like taking control of your inner world.
Exactly. And the Kybalion suggests that by mastering mental transmutation, we can not only change our own lives, but we can also influence the world around us.
That sounds pretty powerful.
Yeah.
Now, let's circle back to this concept of the all. The Kybalion says that we can never really know its true nature. So why even bother talking about it?
That's a good question. And I think the answer is that even though we can't fully comprehend the all, it's still the source of everything. It's the ground of being. And understanding its nature, even in a limited way, can help us understand our own place in the universe.
So it's kind of like trying to understand the nature of the ocean by studying a single drop of water.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. We can't grasp the entirety of the ocean, but we can still learn a lot from studying a single drop. And the Kybalion suggests that by contemplating the all, by trying to understand its qualities, we can start to awaken those same qualities within ourselves.
So it's about recognizing that we are all, in some sense, a part of this infinite living mind.
Right. And that realization can be incredibly liberating and empowering.
Okay, so we've talked about the 7 principles, we've talked about the all, we've talked about mental transmutation. But how does all of this actually play out in real life?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, right? The Kybalion offers a lot of theoretical knowledge, but it's up to each individual to put that knowledge into practice. But one way to think about it is that these principles can serve as a kind of lens through which we can view our lives. They can help us understand the underlying dynamics at play in our experiences and our relationships, even in world events.
So it's about using these principles to make sense of the world around us and to navigate it more effectively.
Exactly. And the Kybalion suggests that by applying these principles, by consciously working with them, we can start to move from being victims of circumstance to becoming masters of our own destiny.
That's a pretty compelling idea. So for our listeners who are just dipping their toes into these hermetic waters, what would you say is the most important takeaway?
I think the most important takeaway is that the universe is not a random, chaotic place. It's governed by laws. And those laws are not just physical laws, like the law of gravity. They're also mental laws, spiritual laws. And by understanding and working with those laws, we can tap into a power that's always been available to us.
The power of our own minds.
Exactly.
That's a great place to wrap up, I think. This has been an incredible deep dive into the world of the Kybalion. We've explored its core principles, its vision of reality, and its potential for personal transformation.
And as always, we've just scratched the surface. The Kybalion is a book that rewards deep study and contemplation. So if you're intrigued by what we've discussed, I encourage you to pick up a copy and explore it for yourself.
Absolutely. And for those who want to keep exploring these hidden corners of knowledge with us, be sure to subscribe to The Deep Dive. Until next time, keep seeking, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.